"You don't belong in a SEAL platoon, sweetheart. You're just here to check a diversity box." That was the last thing Lieutenant Bradley Harwick managed to say before his own arrogance turned into a blur of movement he couldn't follow. 12 seconds later, the golden boy of the command lay unconscious on the mat, his jaw slack, while Petty Officer First Class Raven Calderas stood over him with the calm of someone who had just exhaled a burden instead of thrown a punch. Nobody spoke. The silence in the training bay stretched like a held breath. Even the air compressors in the dive lockers seemed to pause. Later, in the small medical tent behind the training facility, Raven pressed a melting ice pack against her bruised jaw. The corpsman's penlight swept across her eyes, checking for dilation. Her teammates, men who'd never said much more than, "Ma'am," or "Calderas," stood just outside the tent flap, silent. They didn't know what to say. They'd watched a 5 feet 5 inches woman dismantle a man 70 pounds heavier in less than half a minute. "You dizzy?" the corpsman asked, scribbling notes on his clipboard. "Only when I have to listen to bad leadership," she replied, her tone steady, though her tongue tasted copper. She was 29, barely meeting the height requirements, but every inch of her frame was built from something harder than bone: discipline, patience, repetition. 18 months ago, she had earned the Trident, one of the first women to do so, though the achievement had been buried under the quiet stamp of classified. Her bruise wasn't from war, or from some reckless training mishap. It came from her own commanding officer, an officer who'd crossed a line that every SEAL swore never to cross. They all knew her reputation. Raven moved through kill houses like a ghost. Her hands could lock a door or a chokehold with the same precision. She could plank for 20 minutes without trembling, shoot with both hands, dive for hours without complaint. What none of them knew was the years of grinding preparation that had built her. Her story began far from Coronado, on the cold waters of Half Moon Bay. Her father, a Marine Force Recon veteran turned commercial diver, had named her not after a bird, but after the reconnaissance aircraft. Raven, he used to say, means eyes in the sky. You see everything before it sees you. By 7, she was already diving for abalone, her small body trembling in 50-degree Pacific water. Before school, she swam half a mile in the surf. On weekends, she learned knots, celestial navigation, and how to stay calm when a regulator failed 40 feet underwater. Her grandfather, Moshe Calderas, an old Israeli commando from Sayeret Matkal, had taught her what her father couldn't: how to fight. In a garage packed with fishing gear and rusted tools, he taught her Krav Maga until her forearms bruised purple. Small fighters don't win by strength, he told her, pressing his thumb into her shoulder to correct her stance. They win by using the big man's strength against him. They win because they think faster. She practiced until her body responded faster than her thoughts. Violence, he said, was a language, and she was fluent in it, though she was never to speak it without necessity. At 18, she joined the Navy. Combat Medic School. 2 deployments with Marine infantry units in Afghanistan. She patched holes in people, learned how blood smells when it hits sand. Someone noticed her swim times, her marksmanship, her refusal to quit. When a SEAL scout told her she didn't look the part, she only smiled. 3 years later, she stood in formation, the trident pinned to her chest while men who had doubted her stood in the audience, clapping. Her father cried quietly in the crowd. He'd once been rejected from SEAL training for a heart murmur. She had finished the path he couldn't. Then came Harwick. 6 weeks before the incident, Lieutenant Bradley Harwick joined the platoon. Harvard grad, Naval Academy quarterback, son of an admiral, the kind of man who walked like the floor was his. The integration directive is political theater, he'd told the senior chiefs in his first meeting. Women don't belong in the teams. Congress can't legislate biology. The men laughed politely, unsure whether to agree or stay silent. But everyone understood his meaning. He kept her on the sidelines, assigning her to equipment checks during dive drills, reassigning her from breacher position during kill house exercises, ignoring her tactical corrections during mission planning. Her reports were cleaner than his, her times faster, but none of that mattered. The breaking point came the day before. During combatives training, he'd paired her with the smallest male operator, making a show of it. Don't want to break anyone important, he'd said. 40 seconds later, that man was tapping out from a rear naked choke. Harwick stopped the match, face tight with irritation. That's not how we do things in the teams, Calderas. This isn't some strip mall MMA gym. With respect, sir, she said, keeping her voice level, combatives aren't about looking pretty. They're about surviving. He stepped forward, too close. She smelled the bitter coffee on his breath before he struck. His fist cracked against her jaw. The sound echoed through the bay. 17 witnesses froze. In the tent afterward, Master Chief Torres came to her. That's assault, plain and simple. We're filing with NCIS. Raven looked at him. And then what, Chief? I become the woman who got an admiral's son investigated. Every deployment, every mission, I'll be the one who couldn't handle the heat. No one will see the punch. They'll only see the complaint. Torres frowned. You thinking what I think you're thinking. If medical clears me, she said, voice even, and if he's arrogant enough to step back on the mat tomorrow, I'll handle it the SEAL way. Clean. Defensive. Witnessed. The next morning, word had spread like wildfire. Operators from other platoons filled the bleachers. Harwick used his authority to arrange the pairings himself. He smiled at her across the mat, wearing the easy grin of a man who believed the world worked in his favor. 5-minute rounds. Submission or ref stoppage, the XO said. Raven nodded. Her heartbeat was steady, her breathing calm. Harwick's eyes glinted with malice. He opened with jabs, testing her. You can tap out now, he sneered. Save us both the time. She didn't answer. He advanced, throwing combinations with the confidence of a trained boxer, each one heavy with frustration. She slipped them, redirected them, waited. 3 minutes in, his breath grew ragged. He barked, fight back, damn it. That's when Torres, watching from the sideline, realized she wasn't tired at all. She was calculating. Harwick threw a final overhand right. She stepped into it, inside the arc, catching his wrist, slamming her elbow into his solar plexus. Air whooshed from his lungs. Before he could recover, she locked his arm in a kimura, pivoted, and swept his base leg. His head hit the mat hard. She transitioned, smooth as tidewater, mounting and securing an arm triangle choke. Tap or sleep, Lieutenant, she said quietly. He tapped. Fast. Hard. Panic written in his eyes. She released immediately, helped him to his feet with professional detachment. The XO called it. Match over. The entire room stood silent. Then Master Chief Torres's voice broke through. Outstanding demonstration of technical superiority through tactical proficiency. That's how SEALs solve problems. Within hours, NCIS opened an investigation. Witness statements, medical reports, and video footage didn't lie. By the end of the week, Harwick was relieved of command and reassigned to a supply billet in Bahrain. His career, over. For Raven, there were no victory speeches, no interviews. Just another day of training. But everything changed. Teammates who once ignored her now asked for her input. Chiefs requested she teach combatives. She wasn't the female SEAL anymore. She was just one of them. 6 months later, during a mission in northern Syria, her platoon was ambushed. When ammunition ran dry, she dropped 3 insurgents using the same techniques she'd used on Harwick. Her Bronze Star citation would read, Heroic Achievement in Ground Combat. But in the quiet of the team room, cleaning her rifle afterward, she looked at the photo taped to her locker, her father and grandfather standing at her graduation, and smiled. The trident on her chest wasn't about proving a point. It was about living up to the legacy written in her blood. And she'd done it in 12 unforgettable seconds.